we're glad to have him here. Local author, really important and heartbreaking and heartwarming story. And we're just glad to have you here. I'm Karen Guzak. This is my place. We're glad to have you here. We want to celebrate creatives and community, and that's why we're here. And we've got a lot to eat and drink too, but first we're going to have Alex talk to us.
Yes, and some background on Karen's place here. She bought this building. It was the old St. Michael's Catholic Church a long time ago, and she bought it in the early 1990s and renovated it. This is her home and space to host events, and so Karen, thank you so much again.
Right.
Yeah.
You want to make the world a better place? Have a better party. This is one of those many better parties that we're having. We're
Amen.
committed to.
Amen. Perfect.
Glad to have you here.
Yeah, thank you. I also want to, where's Lori Sturdy? Where's Lori? I think she's probably getting her parents maybe. Lori, so I posted on Facebook on some groups in Snohomish about my book going live, and Lori reached out to me wanting to book some book signing events. I like to overthink things, and it would have taken me probably another month or so to actually book this. She was ready to go, jumped on it, had some connections with Karen, and made this happen. So we talked probably a week and a half ago to have this happen today. And so if it was just up to me, it would have taken probably 2 months, and Lori rocked it out. So when I see her come back in the room, I'm gonna call her out, because this wouldn't have happened without her, and she's been a force and just super, super cool to back me up with this. My book, at its basis, is about mental illness and mental crisis support. So it's a story about my family, our tragedy, what happened, and I'll go into that in a little bit. I think a lot of us, who all has read the book? Read the book, perfect. A lot of us, so okay, perfect. So this will be really, really easy, okay? And so it's a story about what happened to our family, but the mission behind it is to raise awareness for mental illness and to be an advocate. I'm not gonna be, as the years go on, I'm gonna be more rehearsed with mental illness and stats, all these different things, but my passion and mission is to be an advocate, not the professional on those things, but to share and to open up the floodgates as far as sharing trauma, sharing PTSD, sharing these stories. This happened almost 10 years ago, and when things like this happen, you're not really ready to talk about it right away. And so I've been working on this book for 9+ years, and I'm ready to talk about it. I'm ready to share. I'm ready to open up discussions. So Rob Reiner this past week, him and his wife were stabbed, murdered. It's a very similar parallel story. And now, not that it's good by any means, but it's gonna be in the media a lot more because he is a celebrity. You know, it was in the local news when it happened to us, but we weren't willing to just jump in and be interviewed or anything like that. I'm now ready, but for a mission to save lives, to support people going through this, to make sure hospitals are supporting individuals going through crisis. I had my brother admitted the night before everything happened in the hospital. He was discharged within 10 hours, and they said that he wasn't a threat to himself or anybody else. And so there's something broken in the system, and I don't know exact facts yet, but it sounds like it's worse now than it was 10 years ago. And so that's my mission, to raise awareness, to speak, to share, to inspire, to, if I've already signed your book, I've been putting in a lot of those, share your story, so open up. Each of us telling our story. I wrote this because it was so insane that going at it alone is way too difficult. It was too insane not to share, because I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't know how to go through. I didn't know what to think or do. And my dad and I did a pretty good job as a team working through it together, surrounded by community and faith. But it just was natural for me to want to share. It feels weird that it took 9 years, but it's probably perfect timing for me to actually recover and work through it, and to not try to do it too soon. I'm going to open up chapter 1, not from the exact start, but a little blurb in there. It's my first book signing, so I was told, don't read too long, short, and it kind of feels weird to read a short passage without going into the background, but I'm gonna lead up a little bit to where I'm gonna start, just so we're all up to speed. And what's cool about starting in chapter 1 is that a lot of us that have read it, that was a while ago that we were in chapter 1. Unlike Cammy, it was a couple days ago, and so it would be a refresher, and then we'll kind of read a little bit blurb, probably have a little bit more to share, and an idea that Lori also had was to have an open mic for anyone that wanted to share about their struggles, their trauma, their stories, because mine's rare in a sense, but everybody knows something that's happened that's horrible, like a trauma, a murder, things like that. So this is about, again, us opening up and us sharing and feeling comfortable getting it out, because there's a lot of peace that happens when you work through PTSD environments. And so, I didn't know this before, but there are a lot of therapies out there where you replay what's happened in your mind of an event of PTSD or trauma, and it helps you work through it and not be afraid of it. When we are fearful of things, we generally hide from them, or they run our lives. And so when you talk about it, when you work through it, when you replay it, I replayed it by writing it and also sharing. I would always talk about it in personal situations, like a one-on-one type thing, but never super publicly. This is like kind of the biggest room that I've shared, other than at gym events. My wife Carrie and I own a CrossFit gym in Woodinville, and so that's a little bit less nerve-wracking to share in front of them that we know, and so this is the beginning stage of me getting out there and being an advocate. And so I didn't acknowledge my wife Carrie, so many of you know her, many of you don't. This is my wife Carrie Konicke. So I wouldn't be here without Carrie, for one. My dad, also, and then again, thank you, Karen and Lori. Lori's still not in here, is she? Okay.
On her way.
Maybe she's here. Okay, cool. So I'm going to start by talking through the lead up to where I'm going to start reading.
That was coming in. Let me go find it.
Chapter 1 starts January 13th, 2016. At 2 a.m., my mom calls me. There's concern from a friend of my brother's that he needs help and he needs to be taken in or something. The call was that my brother had shaved his entire body, doused himself in gasoline, and threatened to light himself on fire. Now, later emails from him, he had doused himself in 3 gallons of gasoline, and the shaving was his head, his eyebrows, his whole body. And so it was definitely a cry for help, but not one that he was willing to get help for, essentially. So we heard about that. We didn't know what to do about it. No one knew where he was at that time. So we waited for the next day. Long story short, I went to go check this house where we were living. It was a split level house. I lived up top, he lived in the bottom. We had a falling out because he had been doing kind of weird stuff, and so we weren't close at that time. But I looked for him at the house before I was going to meet up with his girlfriend and his wife. Again, a lot of us know this story, but and I can talk for days on things, and so I'm trying to keep it short, but also give enough. I found him in the house. If it freaked me out, if you're in a dark room and someone that has their eyebrows shaved and everything, and it looks like pale white, it's frightening, especially knowing what he had been doing. I didn't know if it was a concern or a fear or anything, and so that was kind of where I wanted to start. And I'm going to double check that I'm in the right spot.
Excuse me.
Yes.
I've read it, and they're aware. Yeah. They know. Thank you. I'm with you. Thank you so much. Sorry. I appreciate the concern.
I want to say to boys, I'm so proud, I'm so brave.
Yeah, there is definitely a darkness and a spiritual warfare piece to this. Luckily, the piece that I'm going to read is not going to be about any of that. So my intention is to really focus on the mental health and mental crisis parts to this, and so this piece is where I'm sharing about my brother, how I found him, the interactions I had, because the baseline here is I want people to understand what I was seeing, what I dealt with, the gut feelings I had, the nudges from God that I felt of like, this isn't normal, this isn't okay, this is way out of my lane, out of my ability, and so I'm not gonna talk about any graphic stuff, luckily. Hi Lana, come on in.
Thank you.
So leading up to that, let's just double check here. Okay, I found my brother in the part of the house where I was living, and here's where I want to start. I initiated dialogue of questions and answers, which left me shaken to my core. His past 2 years had been full of terrible decisions, knowing drugs were 99% involved, and no other reason would make sense at this point. Along with the strange night he had, I was stumped. I asked, what's going on? Calmly he responded, nothing, I'm cold. I asked, Zach, what's going on? I heard of some weird things happening. He replied, nothing, I'm good. It's cold, can you come in or close the door? I froze. My mind started racing as I pictured myself walking in the room, closing the door, sitting on the floor, and just hugging him, trying my best to comfort my brother who seemed lost. I immediately realized that this was definitely way out of my pay grade. I replied to Zach, no Zach, I need to just stay right here. I froze in the doorway, unsure what to do as my mind raced. What the heck is going on? Jean, who is Zach's girlfriend's mom, was texting me saying that I needed to call 911. I was not ready to take any advice from some lady who I barely know. I had assumed he wouldn't hurt anyone, but the risk to himself seemed obvious and dangerous. I asked him if he had done drugs lately. He said, not in a few days. He then asked me to draw him a bath. I closed the door instead to give myself a second to call my parents, but I got a busy signal, all while Jean kept texting me to call 911. My head was about to explode. I opened the door and I told Zach, I'm worried about you. I'm being told to call 911 because we're worried about you. He said, why? I told him that I knew he had shaved his body and that he poured gasoline on himself that night before. He told me he was fine and I didn't need to call 911. I kept trying to call my parents and I kept getting a busy signal. Zach hadn't done anything to me. He didn't seem to be bleeding or physically harmed. I didn't know what to do. After I was getting nowhere with Zach, with no intel about what was going on, I walked outside to call Jean. I asked her, she asked me why I hadn't called 911 yet and urged me to do it right away. I told her I told her I needed to talk to my parents first. It was strange to think that I was 26, an adult, and still wanted to get the go-ahead from my parents, but that's how I felt. I didn't want to be one to make the situation worse. We hung up, and I continued trying to call my mom. I kept getting a busy signal. If there was ever a time I truly needed to talk to my parents in my entire life, it seemed like that was it. I was outside pacing back and forth, and I could see Zach walking around upstairs through a window. His being up made me nervous because I didn't want to set him off or cause a scene. Moments later, he walked outside to talk to me. He had a magazine and asked me to read something on a page that he had opened. To read this, I would have needed to bend over and lean in so I could even read the small print. My senses became more heightened. This seemed like a strange request to begin with, putting me in a vulnerable position. Had I gone through with this and bent down to read whatever he was pointing to, my back would have been exposed and I couldn't see what he was doing. I did not fear him. No part of me thought he would harm me, but it felt like every decision needed to be thought through deliberately, and I needed to protect myself. From finding him asleep in the storage closet, being asked to draw him a bath, which I had never done before, to now having a magazine he wanted me to read, I wondered how I turned into a babysitter. Little did I understand then, but there was no doubt in my mind that I was being protected by a higher power, more godly nudges coming through. Why is this happening? This felt like a code I needed to crack with from Strange Spiritual Warfare. I told him I didn't want to read it. He asked again, and I told him again calmly, no, I'm okay, I don't want to. Zach then went back inside. I pulled out my phone to read a text from Jean as she wanted to know what was going on. I didn't know the right thing to do, and I was quite concerned about the decisions I was about to make, contemplating the potential consequences of each choice. This was weird, but was it 911 weird? I didn't text her back. A blessing and curse, I always seek counsel. The phones are amazing.
Yes.
No, it's-
They're funny because everybody's like, oh, when you're reading. So we're like, oh.
Let's see. Zach must have noticed that I was agitated and still pacing outside because he came out carrying a small wooden flute and an umbrella. He proceeded to say, Alex, you know, if I had a weapon, it would be only this wooden flute and this umbrella. You know that, right? I replied, yeah, Zach, I hear you. Just because someone is crazy doesn't mean they are dumb. Who knows what he was doing, thinking, or trying to manipulate me with? The devil was in there, and while the devil may have wanted to attack me, he couldn't. He had a kitchen. We had a kitchen upstairs with steak knives. The fact that his weapons were a 1-ounce flute and a flimsy umbrella didn't even make sense. Still, I stayed calm, went back inside. Again, I started to wonder if my parents were okay. Was something else going on? There was, thank you. My first public reading, thank you. Wasn't perfect, got through it.
It was great.
Thank you, thank you.
It's easier from here.
The last straw that I would read next in here is that he went back inside after that moment and then later brought me a glass of wine. I was outside, it would have been weird to drink that out there, so it was all strange and weird. But when he brought me that glass of wine, it really hit me because I love wine and I would want nothing more in my life than to share a glass of wine with my brother. Him bringing that to me, I knew I couldn't drink it. I didn't know what he put in it. Was there poison? Like, no part of me thought there was probably poison in there, but even actually thinking about this yesterday, I mean, maybe there was. Like literally no idea. But all these feelings in these 3 events, or 4 or 5 weird events, I finally grasped that like this was way out of hand, way further than I could even comprehend, and that every decision needed to be super, super careful. I chose that passage because that's what we're looking to share about with people in their lives. My mom should have called the cops earlier and more often, but she essentially enabled my brother because she's a mama bear and wanted to protect him and have a safe place. And moments like this, like any wrong move or any different move I could be dead. I could have been attacked. There was even a car ride after my brother was discharged from the hospital where like he could have taken the wheel and just thrown us into the ditch. So wanting to share these signs so that others aren't just looking over these things. We will let things fly or enable or like think that's not like that bad, but like when you really lay it out, there's a lot of these things that are multiplying each other that we're not actually looking through and looking at deep enough. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share. Mental health, mental illness side of things, what that can look like, so that others out in life that might be ignoring these things can actually look at it and think this could be better. We had an amazing childhood. We grew up with amazing morals, and so my story, again, I could talk for like probably 3 hours about why I wrote this book, all the parts behind it and everything, but normal family, drugs weren't involved, alcohol issues a little bit, yes, but like this happening with drugs coming in his life in his 20s, and then bad decisions after bad decisions. I wanted to share that because it's like, it was kind of a normal life. It wasn't like a trailer trash family that like got into drugs, and it wasn't like a rich family that got into drugs and bad decisions. It was just normal. And I say this carefully and lightly about my 10 to 20 reasons about why I wrote this. It's a this could happen to anybody story, and that's why I wanted to share it. And I really appreciate all of you being here.
Well, some questions.
Yeah.
Like, had he shown any signs prior to this, or was this the first time? I missed part of this, I think.
Yeah. And so he had gone through a divorce about a year before this all happened, and he had been in drugs and made bad decisions. Like he let his condo in Bellevue go into foreclosure, quit his job, like just all these bad decisions.
Well, how old was he and what job? I mean, how normal was it? He was normal.
Super normal, worked at Microsoft, very high functioning. Yep,
Okay.
yeah. And so
What age was this?
he's a year and 4 months older than me, so he was around 28 at the time. And a lot of mental illnesses can, I've heard different things, but it can happen early 20s, it can happen around 30 where schizophrenia might show up. And there's also a thing about chronic weed usage can also bring on the onset of schizophrenia. And so it happens to be with certain genes that you have. It's not everybody, it's not everything, but there's these things about like drugs are bad, kids, don't do them, be careful. And there's these certain reasons for that. So
Was he smoking weed chronically?
yes, yeah, daily, weed, there's other drugs too that were involved, yeah. But yeah, any questions? I'd love to answer anything. Yeah, Shelly.
Yeah, what's your relationship with your brother now?
Yes, and so chapter 13 in my book lays out a lot of back and forth emails. I had gone to see my brother twice in person. It was actually like a video call at jail, so it wasn't in person. And then I also had a phone call with him in July. I haven't shared any emails or any communications with him since July. And chapter 13 kind of ends quickly with what happened and everything. So he had asked for a call. So again, like I can talk a lot. I'm trying to get all the facts in. I needed him to sign a letter to give me permission to actually use his name in our story. And so I asked him if he would sign it. He emailed back saying, yes, I will, which I was shocked by. And then he asked me for a phone call. I'm like, I would come see him, for him to actually sign this. And I hadn't gone to actually see him yet because he wasn't being someone that was taking responsibility, and that wasn't someone that I felt like was gonna be a positive person for me to be around. And I tried being there for him, but all these emails that you'll see in chapter 13, they're hot and cold and rude and blaming and all these different things, and the things he says are wild. So yeah, your question, I haven't talked to him since July. I actually checked the email thread about a month back to see if he had emailed, and he hasn't. And so it ended a little bit abruptly, but from his side of things.
Okay, but back to that experience you read about. How much had he been exhibiting odd behavior prior to that?
So a year before, the only thing that happened was he got mad at my mom. I wasn't there, but he got mad at my mom. She wanted to stop talking. He followed her into the kitchen, braced her up against the sink, and told her, I think yelled at her saying, talk to me. My dad heard something, came out, there was some mild ruckus, and he said, get out of my house. So there was a weird moment where he was someone that actually couldn't hurt a fly. But then there's this weird moment where he kind of pinned my mom up against the sink. And what's that? Yeah, she's 5'2", little blonde, and so that was an odd moment, but nothing else harmful. He didn't seem to be in harm other than this night, and then that's why I had called 911 to have him admitted, and then there was no support there.
But I can see why you hesitated, because it didn't seem, he hadn't been showing that before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and all I heard was he shaved his body, and there's some gasoline and some fire threats, but it wasn't like he was bleeding or there's anything. Yeah, so and that's why it took me some time to actually work through the mental process of it. Am I going to do this? And then when it was so far gone, the things he was doing, how I was treating him, was like, okay, this
That
is.
was all the same day, the gasoline and what you read about.
The gasoline was the night before. The next day when I found him was those events that I had with him. Yeah. What's your question?
How can he admit to something so logical and rational that you're asking him to do when he was acting so irrational? Aren't you setting yourself up to failure?
Me?
Yes, with all the respect, you know, you're waiting for some kind of confirmation that didn't exist before. And then you think, hey, all of a sudden, you can come to some clarity and say, I'm sorry, right? If that happened, why would that pattern change
Mm-hmm.
and have a clarity about something so detrimental that changed the whole course of being? You know, you went for the core, the foundation, the whole of you, right? So what was he trying to get rid of? Shaving,
Right, like he was trying to.
you know, as you were saying,
You're fine.
cry out or many terms for that, but stripping something,
Or the
right? That's
gasoline,
shame sometimes. How do I clear
Giving
this?
signals.
But and so, you know, what he had said was the gasoline was actually him hiding from them, and then they were demons. You know, he was in the hospital and he needed to get out of there because they were demons. My parents were demons. He was, you know, protecting himself. It was, but you know, he.
Wasn't in his right mind.
Yeah, and there's a odd account of his from that night, from what he remembered in chapter 13 also, and so I talked through a lot of the book about my dad's kind of what happened in his point of view, what he remembers. He was also kicked down the stairs 3 times, like a wood flight of stairs, and so he was knocked out, and there was a knife fight and different things like that. But so you know, even his recollection might not be perfect, and so but then there's my brother's, which like you read that and he talks through what happened from his point of view, what he doesn't remember and parts that he does, and it's you know that took me a while to actually sit with and be able to process.
Was it truly psychotic? He was envisioning things that weren't happening?
He states that they were demons and he was protecting himself. Yeah. And I want to be mindful what I say more about with kids in the room.
I heard of a woman who stabbed her 3-year-old boy because she was seeing.
Please, please.
I mean, it's a real thing.
Please.
I must stand up for these children. We should not be hearing such things.
I'm with you.
I was
I'm
so
with you.
stressed though, I didn't realize,
I'm so
I'm sorry, but don't
It
get
was
so
so
mad
great,
about it.
but
I'm like, whoa,
this is big.
There are times when children.
okay, I got it, I
To
got
hear
it, I'm just
things.
kind of surprised because I wasn't doing it.
Can I
But
just
you
say
brought my
something
awareness.
real
Please
fast?
say something.
Can I?
Excuse me,
Yes.
everybody, I must
Please,
leave.
please.
I am glad you wrote this book. It's very important.
Yes. I wish I can connect with you, lady. But please don't. Yes, I would love to hear you.
Just so you guys know, I've had a conversation with my kids. They're aware.
Because I feel you need us to.
They're aware of things like this, and it's unfortunate.
Okay. All right.
This isn't about me, this is about Alex, and we are here to support him
Yes, we're happy to have you.
and everything that he's gone through.
Yeah.
I just want you guys, I appreciate your guys' concern, but do understand that me as a parent, I have
You're the
had the
mommy.
conversations with them that needs to be had, and we will continue to have conversations. This is important for them because mental health is very serious, and it does run in our family. And so, I really do, I appreciate, you guys can speak freely, because,
Are you Zach's other?
No.
Logan's the coach at our gym, so she's a good friend of ours. Yeah.
Okay, I was confused.
you guys can speak freely, and then conversations will be had that are appropriate, but understand, like, this is real life, and, you know, I tell the boys all the time how fortunate they are, and we are very faith-based, and we are so thankful to God that we have the things that we do have, and that we are healthy mentally and physically. And it's important for the boys to hear stuff like this, because Alex did have such a normal upbringing, and the boys are very close in age, just like Alex and Zach. And as a mom, I can't imagine the position she was in. So I really do appreciate everyone's concern about my boys, but just know that I wouldn't bring them here if it wasn't appropriate, if I didn't think it was appropriate. So I don't want this to be about the children. I want this to be for Alex, and we're here to support him, and I'm so thankful to you for doing this. This is so big.
You know, no one's views are right or wrong, and hiding things from kids, you know, could save them for a while and then hurt them later, and telling them now could hurt them now and save them. Like, you never
just
know.
don't know.
You never know. And so trust the parents in my view, and I appreciate everyone being here. Any other questions?
Does your brother know you wrote this book?
He does, and he actually signed a letter of allowing me to use his name in the book. And so I'd asked him, it was kind of the last stage to ask him if he would sign. I'm like spacing on the actual like phrase of like what the letter is. It's like
release or.
a release or something of allowing me to use his name in the book in our story. Otherwise, I have to change his name and the names of the towns and everything, and it, you know, and so he did let me do that, which was wild. So, and very cool. Karen.
Alex, where is your brother now, and what's his sentence?
He took a 23-year plea deal, and so most court cases don't go to trial. Like 90% or so don't go to trial, and so they plea out or things like that. And so he took a 23-year plea deal, and he's in Airway Heights outside of Spokane, and it'll be 10 years in January, and he feels as though he should be in a mental hospital getting more help, and we fully agree. He's very high functioning, and I write in the book that he has a big ego, he's manipulative, and he's very high functioning. And so the court case that would have been was Washington versus Zach, and so we were on the side of it, and you know, agreed that he shouldn't go to mental hospital because they would probably let him out soon, and then who knows what would happen. But I also agree that he needs more help, and so yeah, there's a whole avenue there to also talk about. But
And his sentence is 23 years, is that right?
Yep.
So he has 13 more to go?
Yeah. And in Washington State, you can get 10% off from good behavior, and so we'll see how that looks towards the 20-year mark or so, 10 more years. Yeah.
Has he expressed any remorse at all, or is he unconnected to what happened?
Great question. And so that's part of the reason why I haven't gone to see him or been more in touch, because there's no responsibility, and yes, you know, there's mental illness and all those things, but when I went to go see him back in 2018, I asked him if he was sorry, and he said, Alex, if someone sleepwalks and kills someone, are they sorry? And so that kind of laid out, I wanted to know where my brother was at mentally, and that gave me the entire picture, and that shows up in the emails back and forth. He's cried, he feels bad, but there's, you know, if you haven't read chapter 13, I definitely want, think you should read it. Yeah, and you know, blames me and even says, Mom would want you to connect with me more, and it's like you can't use Mom. You can't do that. And so, yeah, questions? Melissa.
I love your courage, first of all.
Thank you.
And what I love about your book is you keep going back to faith. That it's a pillar.
Yeah.
It's a pillar. And my question is, did your brother have the same kind of pillar? I got a kind of a indicator that it wasn't as strong as your faith was. And being in the same household with the same parents, living the same way. Am I right or wrong on that?
Yeah, true. He was forging his own path and trying to figure out his own thing. He always had the right answers in his own brain. Where I talked about in that passage that I always seek counsel. He was his own counselor. He was his own right in his mind, and he was a very nice guy. He loved supporting people, but he would never take any advice. He would never want to hear anyone's opinion. and you know, I talk about that too in the book, how he would oftentimes try and make me feel stupid for bringing up something, especially like when I said, don't do drugs, don't they take ice cream scoops out of your brain? He's like, you don't know anything. I'm like, I don't really know anything, but you know, shouldn't be doing things like that. And so, yeah, he, even in jail, he said that he's come closer to, you know, believing in God, feeling closer, but it's gone back and forth, and he likes, you know, not to say that it's bad to forge your own paths, but like he definitely, you know, takes the road less traveled in non-positive ways. Yeah, there was a lot of spiritual stuff. This person that he was at her house in Seattle the night when he had doused himself in gasoline and stuff, she was like a psychic crystal ball type person. So he wasn't getting conventional help. He was getting kind of more psychic help, and there was even a seance in his room that Jean, his girlfriend's mom, had found. So there was some, you know, more demonic type stuff seeming to happen, and yeah.
Talk about,
Courtney,
talk about the, when you guys went back to the house a day or so after, and the neighbor came over, that whole interaction was interesting.
Okay, yeah. So we were kind of picking up things at the house. The house was 80% burned down, so we found some photo books that were kind of charred, but the inside had photos still. So we were kind of going through some things, and a neighbor from way down the road walked up, and I didn't recognize her at first. She abruptly, as I approached her, said, "Why did no one do anything about this?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "Almost a year ago from when this happened, your mom told me that your brother left the house one day saying, 'I'm gonna come back and murder you and burn the house down.'" And so likely that was near that event where he pinned her up against the sink, maybe, but my mom and him only seem to have known that event. And I had never heard anything about that until that moment. And so I asked, well, let's see. I don't know. It's in the book. I don't remember if I asked her, why didn't you do anything about it? Or if I joked about it. I don't remember exactly. But that was my thought of, you know, I didn't know about this. So, you know, I don't think I asked her in the moment that question, because it was already kind of like I wanted to keep things calm. But
just like her, like protecting him in a sense.
Yeah. So the mental illness enabling, protecting, kind of mama bear thing, which is amazing, but to an extent, you know, it leaves someone very vulnerable. It leaves your family vulnerable. Like, these stories aren't so rare. It's rare. It's not every household, but these happen a lot, and that's my mission, to talk about it and to open up and to be a light and to hopefully save lives again.
Just want to say something really short that,
Okay, she's been trying to.
Yes.
No, it's fine, go ahead, no, you go ahead.
Courtney can wait. I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
I can wait.
I'm just
No,
kidding.
go for it, go for it.
I just want to say there's a theme of, you know, the ego, and then thinking that somebody knows better, and then
Mhm.
substance abuse. That pattern, that recipe is I've seen it, you know, in many situations, people know that was the recipe for disaster, and so it's really interesting to see, you know, how any person, right, no matter how good they start, can fall.
Mhm. And someone that is predisposed to mental illness, like, likely will go find drugs, alcohol, and so that's kind of a way to numb or to try and self-medicate, and they also are scared to get help. Or my brother was afraid of being locked up in a mental hospital, which that's a sign in itself. It's like, wait, why was that a fear of his? Why, you know? And so those are signs. And you know, what we experience with Washington State is that personal rights are way heavier than societal rights, and so he was discharged because they didn't want to hold on to him. There wasn't a patient relationship. Again, kind of going over this super quick, and there's no strong societal safety piece to this. So it was, you know, a long time ago, everyone's getting locked up and maybe shouldn't have been fully. Now it's super the other way of like, no one's getting locked up or there's no support, and so there's all this like super big risky area of people with mental illness and not getting support and being scared of it or not wanting to be locked up, and so breaking stigma and causing change. So I'll keep going back to it so that this doesn't happen to many more people. It's going to happen, but how do we make a change so that we can save lives and save families and save communities from generational trauma. Yeah, Courtney.
Thank you. So in the book, well, I have two questions.
Yeah.
First one, you said that your dad is no contact
Yeah.
with your brother. What about you?
Yeah, and so I've been in contact since 2021. I went and saw him twice in 2018, and then I started a email thread with him through the jail in 2021. Haven't talked in the last 6 months. Again, that was kind of him though. So it's super interesting because I had a phone call with him, and after the phone call, I emailed and I said, hey, that was a great call. I'm open to doing this every month or so. What time is good for you? Or what days are good for you? So I asked him that. It was super, super calm. And then I said, I'm going to be sending my book to the publisher soon. If there's anything else that you want to add that you think I might not have put in there, I'm putting in emails from us. And so he had already signed the okay to use the story, so he wasn't worried about anything. His response was, you don't seem ready to work on our relationship, so I'm going to go for now. He cut it off, which
Is this
was
your father?
what's my dad, or sorry, my brother.
Your brother,
My
you're
brother.
saying, but where is your dad in this?
My dad's in Florida, so he actually
In
moved.
this cycle that she's talking about, where does dad fit into the picture?
Yeah, and so my dad doesn't really fit in. So my dad has a no contact order with him from the courts and everything, and my dad's stance has been, this attack was meant on my dad. My brother's even said that, and that my dad's gonna treat it as that, and that's his way of coping and moving forward, of kind of keeping distance.
So he's not really involved.
Not involved. No.
But it was involved with you and him healing? You two had a relationship together that worked through this, or not? Or did he just leave the state?
My dad is amazing and super kind and super he's in full support. After the plea deal hearing, my brother said probably 2 sentences in the actual court trial. I was left with zero closure. Carrie noticed that, and she was like, you should go see him, because he's going to be in Snohomish County for 2 more days or whatever before going to, I think Walla Walla was the first stop. And so I called my dad to see what he thought, and he was totally open. He was totally in favor of me doing that. So he's been in favor of the book. I've sent my dad a lot of things about communications with my brother. He's just decided to keep out of it, but he's super supportive of everything, especially this mission and sharing. Lord.
So, in reference to your dad, so did your dad feel like the attack was really meant more to hurt your dad than your mom? And your mom was, it happened because he was trying to hurt your dad?
Yes, so from my brother's mouth, the attack was meant on my dad. And then through a conversation with a neighbor, the phrase collateral damage came through, and my brother said yes. And so the attack was meant on my dad. It must have been the crazier demon, and my mom was collateral damage. And it goes through that in Zach's account in chapter 13, and then I go through my dad's viewpoint in chapter 2, I think.
But your dad has lost some of the memory because of the injury falling down the stairs, right? Like can he remember everything or not?
There were some blips, he said, because he was concussed probably even twice, and he had peripheral neuropathy. He was in the hospital the next 2 days after everything, and he got there was a lot, and maybe it's from that, maybe it's from just PTSD, trauma in the moment, like your brain might be saving you from some things, and so yeah. All right, Courtney.
Will you talk to us about the picture?
Thank you. Awesome. Yes. So, Allie, come on up here. Okay. So Alejandra is a artist, and so she actually painted this. This is the first this is kind of what we came up with the front cover of the book. And so I wanted her to be a part of it because I knew she was an artist, and this kind of brought this scenario to life. And so the picture that I had in my mind of what I wanted the actual, what's that? Yeah, was the moment that I got the call from the detective that there was a body found in the house. And so this is me in between Snohomish and Everett. I had walked to the edge of a grassy field and got the call. I was kind of walking, figuring that there was a bad call coming. And this was just kind of a moment in time that I talk about in the book and seemed like a really iconic thing for me. And so this is what Allie drew. I really appreciate it, Allie. Yeah.
It's just that moment in particular.
Yeah.
And then the past, I think we came with that later, right? It's not about that moment. It's about your path towards healing, and then, but we also had it like in a moody weather pattern, like, you know, the drama, the heart, and all that, the darkness of the moment, you know.
Yeah, and it was in January, so even like a gloomy day in the valley and everything too, but just like, you know, not to have it be a light day, the sun and kind of like the kind of heavenly peace coming out of the sky at the end of the actual path was kind of the idea. And because it was dark, dreary, not the best moment, but there's good things ahead, and so that was kind of the whole picture of it. And so the actual book has more of a picture cover, and so this was the what's that?
Inspiration.
This was definitely the inspiration, and really
That was my
appreciate
first commission. It's hard.
Good job.
It's hard to put, you know, someone else's thinking or vision when you haven't had the vision. You know, so.
Yeah. That wasn't her first go at it either. She had a lot of different. We had a lot of different.
Oh yeah, I did it like what, 3 times, 4 times.
3 or 4 times, and so yeah, so it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, this painting itself has my heart definitely, and I hadn't actually seen it yet in person, and so she brought it today, and I'm really thankful.
And now it's yours to keep.
Yeah, thank you.
Good job.
Cool. Thanks for coming, you guys. Really appreciate it. And I will sign books now if you guys want to mingle. And if anyone has anything to share, you can hop on the seat and talk and share anything that you've been
Yeah,
through.
any testimonies or anything like that, feel free to get up and tell us your story.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.